In a world where not all things can be explained, we turn to those with experience and the knowledge to help us. So join us as we explore the paranormal crossings into the unknown.
Hi, welcome to Paranormal Crossings into the Unknown podcast. My name is Aaron Collins, your host. My co-host, James Mitchell, is not here tonight, so I will be interviewing our guest solo. He is actually out of town in beautiful Seattle, Washington. But he will be back next week. So hopefully everybody's doing all right and has been enjoying the last few podcasts we've been putting out. We've actually been getting some great responses and feedback from the public and friends of ours, and so, which I'm happy to hear, because going backwards in a way, because I started doing podcasts and then went to television, and then the opportunity came to do podcasts again, which is really where I wanted to go back to in the first place. It makes me happy that people are starting to listen and download and really enjoy our guests. So again, if you're interested in having us interview a specific guest, feel free to write into the show. You can find that information on the podcast page, and let us know what you're thinking, and also give us some feedback about the show. We would love to hear about it. So we always appreciate your feedback. And as far as guests go, we do have a wonderful guest. She's a friend of mine, and I've known her for several years now. And she is an author. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this title. Now, this is a very, very long title, and we'll discuss all of this with her, but she's absolutely amazing. She is a paranormal researcher, an author, writer, tour host, lecturer, and RMS Queen Mary enthusiast. But she's also, we'll dig a little bit deeper, but she's also the California coordinator at Oregon Ghost Conference, which also I'm one of the planning members at the Oregon Ghost Conference here in Oregon. She's a writer and correspondent at Portland Underground. We'll get into that. And tour host at City of Vista, California City Hall. And she's also the founder, co-director, and case manager at San Diego Paranormal, which was established in 2009. So I'm very honored and excited to have her on. It's the wonderful Nicole Strickland. Welcome to the show, Nicole.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. So excited. Yes. Congratulations on the show. How amazing.
Thank you. Well, and thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. I know that the last few times we've seen each other at the Ghost Conference, it's been hectic, and we both have so much going on with you teaching classes and doing presentations and all the things that I'm doing. We just haven't had much of a time to kind of hang out. So this is nice.
One does, really, right? I mean, it's like I've gone and I'll like wave and say, "Hey, what's up?" and have 5 minutes with someone the whole weekend, and that's it. It's kind of ridiculous.
That's the way it always is. It's like come and go.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
It's just action packed. So I'm glad I get this hour with you. So we're anchored for at least an hour. So that's cool.
No, it's kind of been in the making. We've been wanting to do this now for a few years. So here it is.
Now don't think I'm not going to get you to sit down with me at the Ghost Conference this year, though.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to happen. I know I didn't make it last year. I was bummed, but this year,
yeah, that was a bummer, and but understandable under the circumstances. So so why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself before we get into all the juicy stuff. Where are you from, and just a little bit more about you.
Absolutely. Well, I was actually born in Huntington Beach, California. It's a little beach town about an hour north of San Diego in Orange County, and so I lived there until I was about 1.5 years. And then I'm an only child. So then my father got a job in Las Vegas, Nevada. So then we packed up and moved to Nevada, and I lived in Las Vegas until I was about 7. And my parents at that time separated. They're still really good friends now, which is great. That's a whole other story. But I lived in Las Vegas until I was about 7. And then once they separated, that's when I moved back to San Diego, California, where my family's from. So my mom's side of the family and my dad's side of the family are both from San Diego, California. But it was actually as far back as I can remember in Las Vegas that I had my first paranormal incident. As far back as I can remember, I would say maybe 3 or 4 years old. I started seeing just, I wouldn't say if they were full bodied apparitions, but I started seeing like these weird shadowy figures kind of moving about our house. And I remember, and I've shared this before on other shows, but I remember this one incident. We had a nice little backyard in the back of our house with a nice pool. I was a water baby when I was little. I learned to swim when I was like 1.5 years old, so I was always in the pool. And so
Oh,
it was
wow.
just maybe about 8:30 in the summertime, and so the sun was setting. And my dad and my mom and I were standing outside of the pool. We were kind of drying off, getting ready to go in for the night. And I saw this like black shadow figure. I didn't feel threatened or anything like that, but it moved as though it came in between my parents and I. And I was young. I was maybe, gosh, 5, I would say. And I remember saying to my mom and dad, I was like, look, look, mom and dad, look at the draft. Like, I don't know why I would have called it a draft. I have no idea, but I just
Wow.
remember saying that. And so I just kind of watched it move and then it dissipated. And it was just a really weird occurrence. And then also in the house, I had a so called imaginary friend, which, being at that age, your parents are thinking probably, well, you're at that age for imaginary friends. That's probably what she's dealing with. But they would hear me talking to myself in my bedroom, but I wasn't talking to myself. I was talking to this entity, and it was an older man, elderly man in almost vintage, like gold rush attire. And he would come and visit. As an adult, I surmised that maybe he was from the gold rush like, days, 1800s time period. And so those were my first experiences. And so ever since I was a young child, I've always been a little sensitive to the paranormal. I've never been frightened by it or anything like that. And then growing up, that interest into studying the realm and getting to know a little bit more about the supernatural, specifically ghosts and hauntings, that stayed with me, through my elementary, my middle and high school years. And I would, as I got older, I would pretty much try to get my hands on any article or book or picture of a ghost that I could. And so before the internet came to be, that was a little tough. And then obviously once the internet came out, there was a lot more to look into, a lot more to study. And so that interest stayed with me. And I actually graduated from the University of Arizona in 2001. And my senior year there, my mom's mom, so my maternal grandmother, and I've shared this story many times, but it's extremely profound. You hear of paranormal researchers, telling about the one time that really got them interested in wanting to become a researcher. So this is that one pivotal moment for me. And so when my grandmother was diagnosed with congestive heart failure, she passed away again when I was a senior, and she called me the night before her passing. Now I had no idea that she was going to pass the day after. She just called me, wanted to know how I was. She didn't sound paranoid, but she sounded concerned about me, which was a little odd. It was just so out of the blue and random. And I told her, I said, Grandma, her name was Helen. I said, Helen, I'm fine. I'm busy, college student, taking my classes, working. I have midterms I have to study for and all that. I'm fine. And she's like, okay, I just wanted to make sure. And it was a very short conversation. And then the next following day in the afternoon, my mom called me. And I instinctively knew that something was wrong because my mom called and she said, sweetheart, I want to let you know that I love you so much. And I said, okay, mom, what happened? And
Wow.
that's when she said, Grandma passed away early this morning. And of course, I was devastated. I lost it, just cried my eyes out, booked the next flight out to San Diego that I could and spent some time with the family. And my grandmother never had an official funeral. It was just a little kind of a closed family session. And I remember saying my goodbyes to her, and it was just really hard because I was always close to my grandmother. And so when it was time for me to go back out to college, I started having, not right away, but within a few days, odd experiences. The first of which were, let's see, my bedroom door and the front door of my place. The doorknob started to move and rattle by themselves. And
Oh,
I
wow.
thought, oh, it's vibration. It's, my neighbors. I didn't think much of it. And then a couple of nights later, give or take, a few days, I was on my bed and I was doing work for class, and I felt this disembodied hand caress my face. And I didn't see anything. It just felt as though it was from someone that I knew and loved. I had that really warm feeling when it happened. And that's when I started to connect the dots like, okay, grandma, is this you? Could this possibly be you? No, no, it can't be. I was just kind of in denial. So again, time went by. And then the final, I guess, pivotal moment, if you will, of the whole thing came a few days later. And again, I was doing studies. I was working on my studies. And then in my left peripheral vision, I saw someone standing there and then almost a light lit, like she was almost lit from behind. When I looked over near my closet, there was my grandmother, full bodied, adorned in one of her favorite dresses. I mean, she wasn't even translucent. It was just like you looking at me or me looking at you. Very solid. She looked about 10 years younger. She didn't say anything to me, but she kind of had this peaceful smile on her face. And then she demanifested right before my eyes.
Wow.
And this happened a couple of times, even the following night, the night after. And it just was so profound, and that solidified my interest in wanting to become a paranormal investigator. And so that's kind of when my path started as a researcher. So I've been doing this since like 2001. And it's just
Wow.
looking back, I never would have dreamed of being where I am now. Back in 2001, it's just, some things are just meant to happen. And I almost feel like I'm just meant, like there's this innate passion I have for the field, and I'm almost just meant to be doing what I'm doing. It's definitely a calling. So,
That's such an amazing story, and I can truly connect to, and
yeah,
I'm sure a lot of other people can connect to when a loved one, like a grandparent, makes a connection with you like that
right.
from the afterlife. And, that's happened to me, and it's happened to several people in my family. And, I
Wow.
was also close to my grandmother, my mom's mom.
Right.
Excuse me. I was their first grandchild. And
Oh, wow.
so we always had that bond. And my grandfather, he passed away way too early, and I was 14. And so, um, yeah, so I've also had experiences like that. And so with those experiences, um, so this kind of launched you into your curiosity and into wanting to do more research. And you had mentioned
Okay.
earlier about the internet. The internet has given us a lot of tools
It
for
has.
research. Yeah,
Absolutely. There's a lot of, excuse me for saying there's a lot of junk out there too, but if you sift
absolutely.
through that, there can be, a lot of incredible resources, and you may find one and that opens the door for something else. So it really can be an incredible tool.
Now, how did you end up putting together the San Diego Paranormal Researchers?
That came about, San Diego Paranormal Research Society, that came about, let's see, in '09. And so prior to that, I had volunteered and worked with various different teams throughout Southern California, some of which are now defunct. And so
Hmm.
I got some experience with private residence cases and historical cases and business cases, and just kind of ways to approach the investigation side of it. And then I also found out, things that I wouldn't want to replicate, and if I had my own team. So just after a few years of working with different teams, I had this desire to have my own. And so that's when the San Diego Paranormal Research Society came to be in 2009. And since that time, I'm very proud to say that it's become one of San Diego's most well respected teams, we're very, we will say right away that we're not ghost hunters. We have a very serious mindset. I think that there's a different psychological component between ghost hunters and paranormal researchers. Not that there's anything wrong with ghost hunting, no, but we take our approach very seriously, and we're very methodical, and we're very professional. And I think that has gone a long way. We've worked a lot with the San Diego community, like the San Diego History Center. Right now, we have a partnership with one of the local libraries here where we not only conduct research there, but we give various presentations for its patrons. And of course, we have the tours that we've been hosting for 8 years at the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe up in Vista, which are fundraisers for the Adobe. So we've really come a long way, and we just have a strong passion for what we do, and it's something that we really enjoy. So we love
I
it.
think that's awesome. And you have, I don't know how you sleep or when you sleep, Nicole, because
I make time for it, because if I don't get sleep, no one's going to want to be around me if I get no sleep.
Right. The cats will come.
Admit it right now.
Probably swat at you.
Oh, know it. Absolutely.
And so and I have a lot to talk to you about. And
me too. Likewise.
But I want to back up a little bit, and as fascinated as I am with all the paranormal, I do want to talk to you about your writing. How did you get started with the writing?
Oh my God! I've always loved to write. I mean, even like when I was young, I would write like little short stories. I didn't do anything with them. I would enjoy writing my diary when I was young, or I would write little short stories or things like that. And again, I never did anything with them, but it's one of those things. I'm not even sure. I just think it was meant to happen. You know how like sometimes I think that we're not always like we have control of our life to an extent, but I think like the universe almost has blueprints for us, and it kind of dictates what our life's going to be. And I kind of think that's kind of the case with the writing. It just kind of fell into place. I've always, like I said, had a passion for, my interest in the supernatural, and then of course writing. So I decided to blend those two, and I wrote my first book. And ever since then, it was just kind of like an addiction, if you will. And so, of course, one of my loves is the RMS Queen Mary. So I've come out with 3 books about her, and then recently published San Diego's Most Haunted with Schiffer, which talks about 25 plus different historical locations in San Diego, the history and the paranormal phenomena of those locations. And then with the History Press, I just came out with a book about the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe, about the history of Vista, about the history of the Adobe, and all of our findings of the location from 8 years of research. So it's just, I don't know, it's almost like an escape for me. And I wish I had more time to devote to writing. If I had a ton of money in the bank, that's what I would do full time. But it's I don't know. It's just something that I really enjoy. It's like a heartfelt passion.
I think that's incredible, and you're good at it.
There's always room to improve. I from my first book until my most recent, I can tell, wow, you've really improved. Because there's I guess a rhythm to nonfiction book writing, and so you just with every book I learn and develop, and that's the way it is.
Right, and it's got to be difficult because it's nonfiction, right. And so you're basically writing about facts. So there has to be tons of fact finding and research and just dedication alone into doing this.
Absolutely. I mean, I look for credible sources, and in terms of facts and statistics, I'm constantly cross-referencing and looking at other sources and seeing what those sources say. I mean, I will, spend hours in the library, going back to, even newspaper articles from hundreds of years ago, things like that, or, looking in the microfilm department. Or I know with San Diego, with our downtown library, it's called the California Room, and they have just chock full of resources about the history of our state and locations. So I've spent a lot of time there, but you have to sift through credible resources, and then kind of develop an outline for what you're going to write about. In terms of writing about the paranormal or historical locations, one of my pet peeves is when books talk just about the paranormal and they skimp on the history. I feel like
gosh.
you need to share that historical narrative and delve into the history of that site. That's what's most
Absolutely.
important. And I mean, the paranormal wouldn't exist without that. So I
Of
almost
course.
feel like, doing the historical part is a lot more important, talking about, the phenomena of that site. So I tend to try to go in depth with the historical narrative of sites. And that can be challenging, but it can be very rewarding too at the same time.
I think and that's important to point out,
Yeah,
and especially, and also with paranormal investigating.
absolutely.
It's important to do the research
Yeah.
on a location, and but history. I love history. In
Oh,
school,
yeah.
when I was in high school, I didn't care for it so much. Now that I'm 100 years old, I love
Oh,
history.
please.
And so,
Not even.
so but it is important, and I love history. And speaking of, we were talking before the show, our mutual friend Jeff Davis, who's also an author, historian,
Yes,
paranormal
yes.
researcher. He's one of my great friends also, and close friends. And he, I could sit and listen to him talk about history
Oh, I
um,
know.
all the live long day. And
Oh, I
you know, and,
he
and,
has
and
so much
sometimes I
knowledge.
have, oh gosh, I'll have certain questions, and I'll just send him a message, ask him a question, and he just pops it right back, with the answer, and just like, man, you're a walking history book, you and
Yes,
the
absolutely.
thing, the thing that I love that you said early on that I have so much respect for is passion. You have so much passion. You have passion for life. You have passion for writing. You have passion for history. You have passion for people. You have passion for the paranormal. And so I like the fact that you and your team, I like the methods that you use in the paranormal investigating. So you don't just walk in and just start investigating.
No,
There's a method.
there is a method, and I think that there's a delicacy that you have to have when investigating too. I mean, one of the things that Ali Schreiber, she's kind of my confidant, she's the co-director as well of the team. Her and I just, one and the same, really. We just have kind of the same principles and the same philosophies. We gel so well together. There's a very unique mojo that we have. And one of the things that we tell our guests a lot is, you have to approach working with not only your clients, but the spiritual energies that you're communicating with. And a lot of times we won't know exactly who they are, but you have to treat them with respect. You have to treat
Right.
them with dignity, and that goes a long way. What you put out, we get back. And I think that that's
Absolutely.
one of the reasons why we have acquired such interesting data on many of our investigations, just because some of the energies may know. I mean, especially the intelligent ones. Wow, these guys are very professional. They're
Yeah.
not trying to disrespect us in any way, and I think that can go a long way.
I
So
agree. And when I was a tour guide at the Portland Shanghai tunnels, I would say that during my tours is that
see that,
I,
right?
yep, I treat people in life with respect as I do with the spirits in the afterlife,
Oh,
and that's
absolutely.
why, yeah, they treat me with respect. Now, did they play around with me and goof around with me like live people? Yeah, they did.
Yeah, of
They
course.
liked, for some reason, they always tapped me on my hips when I was by myself in the underground, getting things set up or putting, tearing down. And I would flip around and go, okay, who was it?
Yeah,
And they,
exactly.
they
Yeah.
always did stuff like that. But I always, they came to know me after a long period of time. And I always came down and I talked to them when I was by myself
That's
and, treated them with respect. And they did the same with
exactly.
me.
See
And
that?
so,
I mean, that's so refreshing to hear. I mean, it's like, I don't care what type of person they were in life. I mean,
right.
they're gone now, I mean, assuming we're, dealing with people that were once living like us humans, It's like, it doesn't matter. It's like, you know what? You can go a long way with treating someone with respect. And it's just, that's kind of like the hallmark of our investigation. And so it's very refreshing to hear that you kind of adopt that same like philosophy.
Absolutely. And one thing I've always told my team is we will not provoke. That is not, if that's what you think, then you don't need to be on this team.
Exactly. Thank you.
I was raised in a home. You treat people the way you want to be treated. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I carry that through my team and with paranormal investigating. So you will never, ever, ever see me provoke.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Or a location with disrespect. And
we actually had a member many years ago of SDPRS that provoked, and there was a warning given. It happened again, and we had to let him go. That's how we took it, and it was, it was tragic in a way, but it's just no, not at all. It's just not right. How can you sleep at the end of the day? Being
exactly. No, you just can't do that, and I don't understand why people would do that.
Right.
I think some people go into an investigation knowing history and maybe hearing about an apparition or a spirit left behind that may have been a horrible person in life that maybe had killed people or whatever the case may be. I'm just putting something out there. I'm not saying, I'm not stating a true fact about a true location or a true spirit or history, but I've heard of stories like this. And then they go in and, okay, so-and-so, you're bad enough to, to strangle women and children and kill them and blah, blah, blah. Why don't you do something to me, you son of a bee, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. No.
I'm not like that.
I'm not either. I'm not at all.
No. And do you actually know for a fact that that's the spirit there? How do you?
That's just it. Exactly. Yeah. You don't know.
How do you know?
Even the history of that person could be a little altered too. I mean, we have someone at the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe, one of the previous owners, that was known to be a murderer, and it's like not one time have we even addressed that with him. And, we leave that alone. We don't talk about death. We don't mention ask questions about death, anything like that. We kind of just leave that alone. And so,
and why? And I just have to bring this up. Why are we defined by titles? If I, in my life, let's just say if I made a mistake for whatever, and let's say I accidentally killed someone somehow, am I a murderer the rest of my life because I accidentally killed someone, however that happened? So am I for the rest of my life known and afterlife known as a murderer because of one mistake? And it's not right. So I don't think we should go in and assuming people or spirits with titles.
I agree. Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's very smart and very, very dignified to not do that. So absolutely.
So the big thing I want to talk about. The big thing I want to talk about when we come back from break is of course the beautiful, the magnificent, the majestic Queen, the beautiful Queen Mary.
I can just talk about this all day long.
Honestly, Nicole, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it.
I'm like, oh.
I have been, and no pun intended, but I've been dying to actually talk to you about her. And so, oh gosh, I've got goosebumps. Okay, so we have to take a short commercial break, but stay with us. So when we come back from this commercial break, we are with Nicole Strickland from San Diego, California. And when we come back, we will finish our conversation and we will be talking about the beautiful Queen Mary. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Paranormal Crossings Into the Unknown. This is such an awesome day because we have the wonderful, amazing Nicole Strickland, great friend of mine, and I'm so excited, Nicole, that you're here with us. We've had such a great conversation. I could just sit and listen to you all night. And unfortunately, we don't have all night. So
I know, right? Oh, likewise, yeah. I admire you guys. I admire you just as much. So thank you so much for the kind words.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, I really look forward to seeing you in March at the Oregon Ghost Conference. So
you bet.
We've got to find some time to hang out. So we're going to do it.
Gosh, I know it's going to happen. I'm
as
hoping
we're
to
going
come
into,
in on Thursday. I'm hoping to come in a day earlier, and just stay a little bit longer.
I think we're going to do the same. I
Oh,
think,
good. I think a lot of people are doing that.
yeah, I think we're coming in a day early. I'll have to double check. So, but yeah, as we were going into commercial break, I had mentioned the beautiful, the majestic and magnificent Queen Mary. And I don't want to see you at the Ghost Conference and you walk by like the Queen and just do that Queen wave and then that's it. So with the one hand and that's it. A quick wave and a hug and see
Yeah. No,
So
not
we'll make some time. Yeah.
You bet.
So and Christina will ground me and say, we've got to spend some time with Nicole. So
I just
so
love her.
we'll do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
she really wanted to co-host tonight and talk to you. So
yeah, I miss
we'll have
her.
you.
Give her a hug.
We'll do that. Well, I know that she will. We'll definitely have you back on, and I'll have her co-host with me. So
sounds good.
Okay, so the Rancho. See there I go again. Rancho Buena Vista Adobe. Did I do it right?
You did it. That's fine.
So tell us more about this location and how you got involved.
Oh, absolutely. So the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe, a nice little piece of California history. It's up in Vista, California. Vista's about 25 minutes north of San Diego, so it's in between San Marcos and Oceanside. Very nice little community. There's another rancho up there as well. But we started getting involved with the Buena Vista Adobe about 8 years ago, going on 9 years ago. So we approached the city of Vista, that's who runs the Adobe, about hosting fundraising historical / paranormal tours there. And so they were very excited about that. We met with the staff there and we kind of proposed our plan for the tours and they liked it. And it started out bi-monthly, or no, every other month. And then it just got, and because it's a fundraiser, all the proceeds go to benefit the Friends of the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe, which helps to run it, goes toward renovation, maintenance of the property. It became once a month tour. So we have the tours, let's see, third Friday of each month. There's one at 7 and one at 9:30. They're 2 hours in length. And so they give guests a historical / paranormal view of the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe and the history of Vista. So guests come and we have a really good 10-minute historical video that people watch. And then we give a little presentation about how we operate, how the methods we use with paranormal research, a little bit about some of the equipment we use. We go over some of the experiments that we'll do because the guests and because the location is the inside the Adobe is a little bit small and there's a lot of artifacts. We only allow up to 10 people per tour. And so it's not like there's like 50 people per tour. So it's relatively small. And so the guests, including us, Allie and I, as the co-hosts, it operates as an investigative team. And so we go through each room of the Adobe. We'll do like a divining rod session in the kitchen. We'll do a ghost box session in one of the rooms. We've done them in various rooms, but we typically like to do that in the Major Domo room, which is where the head foreman of the rancho used to stay, Major Domo.
Oh.
And then we'll do a live collective EVP session towards the end in the Grand Sala, also known as the music room. And so we go through each room and we talk about the history. We talk about some of the claims that people have had there. Over the past years, I would say in the past 3 to 4 years, we have, for some odd reason, we can't explain it. This field is gray. It's not black and white. We have collected some incredible ITC or instrumental trance communication spirit box captures. And we're talking about, words and phrases that correlate to our questions, that match the history of the location, very clear words and phrases you're not straining to hear. And we're almost recognizing, without having done any forensic voice analysis, which is probably what we should do. But we're starting to recognize the various vocalizations that come through month to month. And so
Now, what is this? Where does this property date back to?
this dates back to, well, the property itself, 1850. So it has seen many owners throughout its lifespan. So in 1989, the city of Vista purchased it. And so
Okay.
it was originally like an 1,100, just under 2,000 acre property. And it saw many owners, the first of which, Governor Pio Pico, deeded the property to a neophyte, which Native American basically, named Felipe Subria. And he was the first owner. The original structure on the property was his little makeshift hut, and he had stables there. And, and then from as each owner came throughout the years, more buildings were added on the property. So today it's an L-shaped structure that has a guest house, and also in the back three, I guess, servants' quarters rooms where they hold classes and educational programs for fourth and fifth grade students called Adobe Days. So now, I mean, many people get married there. There's all kinds of events there annually. They have various art show exhibits in the guest house, and then of course our tours, and then people can go in for $3 and get a historical tour by one of the docents there. So it's a
Wow.
very, very historical property, right in the heart of, City of Vista. And it kind of, if you go through the San Diego history, there was the Native American period, there was the Mexican period, there was the Rancho period. So one of the most notable owners of the property, and they didn't live there, but it was Cave Johnson Couts and then Isadora Bandini de Couts of the very legendary Bandini family in San Diego. They lived nearby in the other rancho in Vista that's called Rancho Guajome, but they did own the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe for a certain period of time, and then many of their children did as well. So it's very, very, very historical, and it's interesting because some of the energies that we believe are there in spirit form, whether they're resident spirits there, or they come through and pass through, are former owners, such as the Couts and members of the Couts family and the Bandini family and so forth. So it's one of those places that has such a rich history, and you don't see this happen too often, but we have been able to take certain pieces of paranormal data, if you will. And we've been able to take those pieces and compare those with historical records, and there's a match. So it's
Wow.
just very, very interesting. There's a very famous library in kind of near the Pasadena area of Los Angeles called the Huntington Library. It's in San Marino, California, and Allie and I have gone there. I mean, we could spend weeks there because there's annals and annals of historical records and actual journal articles that Cave Johnson Couts wrote with his own hands, and we could just spend hours there sifting through his journals just to learn a little bit more about him and the location. And we've done that, and it's pretty incredible. So we're really happy to be doing the tours.
I think that's incredible. I would love to visit there. Is there? I've seen videos. I think maybe it was a TV spot that you did regarding that.
Yeah, I was actually on I was on Channel 8 News recently for the San Diego, for the morning news edition, and they did have me on to talk about it. Yeah, that was the most recent one. But we're very protective of the property too, just because, we feel like the energy there is so peaceful, it's content. So we're always, trying to look out for the property as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. You're so gifted. You're so talented, and your energy is you have such great energy as just a person. Just so calm and loving. And so I appreciate that, and I know that when you go into a location with spirits, I know they feel that, and I think that's why you get such great responses.
And likewise, you were one of the very first people that I met at the Oregon Ghost Conference when I went for the first year, and I immediately was like, gosh, Erin Collins is awesome. Like,
thank you.
Yeah, I feel the same way. But thank
Oh,
you. I
stop,
try. You know, I
stop,
try.
but keep
I
going.
know.
Stop it, keep
No,
going. No, I'm just kidding.
right.
I'm
Yeah, I try.
Well, thank
I try.
you. I really do appreciate that. But no, I truly believe that, and I feel that, and with that, we've got to talk about the Queen Mary. This is
Yeah.
how. Okay, so my biggest question for you, the first question is, how did you get involved with the Queen Mary? We're talking about
I don't
the
know. I think
Queen Mary.
I mean, you know, it's one of those locations. It's again, I think it's one of those things that were. It was just kind of engraved in my blueprints.
Hmm.
You know, it was just bound to happen. I mean, in my early college years, my mom went and she ballroom danced in one of the rooms there. I think it was the Veranda Grill, and at that point, I didn't really. I was like, "What? What is that?" You know, I didn't know much about it,
Hmm.
and it was it was in the year 2000, and it was spring break, and so one of my friends and I came out here to take one of the 3 day cruises to Mexico that they have, and there's a Carnival cruise port like literally adjacent to the Queen Mary. And so the night before we boarded our cruise ship, I stayed at my friend's mom's house, who lived in Huntington Beach at the time. And the next morning, she drove us to, board the cruise ship. And I remember you have to go along Queens Highway, which goes right by the Queen Mary. And here I was in
Wow.
the back seat of my, friend's mom's car, if you will. And I'm looking at this historic ship out of like the 1930s. And
Wow.
I was like, oh my flippin' goodness. And it was just right then and there. I'm like, you know what? Someday I will be back. And so that day came in 2005. And I remember
Wow.
pulling into the parking lot and parking and kind of going up the elevators, going up the ramp there. I just blanked on what it's called, gangway, if you will, I guess. And I went on A deck. There's several decks. There's 12 decks. So I went up on
Wow.
A deck, and that's where the hotel lobby is located. And M deck, A deck, and B deck encompass the hotel areas of the ship. So I remember stepping on A deck, and I had never been to the ship before, only seeing it from a car up,
Right.
Queens Highway. I'd never been there before. And I stepped on A deck, and it was just, I can't even put it into words. I just felt this immediate soul connection to the ship.
Hmm.
And I remember saying to myself,
Wow.
I have been here before. Everything
Oh.
familiar about it, everything. And so many people have said, Nicole, I think you've had a past life on board. In fact, a past life regressionist messaged me just recently, and he's like, "Wow, I really enjoy seeing a lot of your photos from the Queen Mary. You know, I've done a lot of past life regression. I know you've had a past life aboard." So I don't know
Really?
if it seems like it might fit, but whatever the case, there's just this draw, this soul connection I have with the ship. And it's weird though, because many people, many of her former crew, passengers, war brides that sailed aboard, even World War II veterans that sailed during World War II, many people feel the same way. So I think that she has this uncanny, if you will, way of just drawing people in. I mean, I will. A lot of people may think I'm nuts for this, but
Hmm.
I mean, I'm not talking about the people who run the ship. I'm talking just about the ship herself. She's a
Right.
lot. She has a brain. She has emotion. She has a soul. She communicates with you, and she's drawn to certain individuals. I know people will think I'm nuts for that, and that's fine. That's just
Not at
my
all.
belief. And it's amazing. It's something that you really can't put into words.
The way you have described the ship
Yeah,
is is absolutely
yeah.
beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Literally, and
I
I
mean,
can tell you're a writer. You're very descriptive, and I can picture you from the moment of you seeing that ship from the Queens Highway in the backseat of your friend's mom's or parents' car to you pulling in that parking lot and stepping on the is it A deck?
yeah.
Oh, and then the immediate connection when your foot stepped onto that deck, like a burst of energy going through your body.
Yes.
It's like I'm back home, and
You know what? That's exactly it. I feel like I'm home and at one with the universe. Nothing else matters when I'm aboard. Nothing.
goodness. That is
And
just,
it's just like, it's so, and some other people have it too, but not everyone.
mm,
And it's so, I mean, it's just so amazing. I mean, she's an old ship. She was built in 1934. And so there's a lot of people that will complain, oh, this needs to be done and this needs to be done. And it's like, I wish people could just look beyond that and really
yeah.
feel the soul of the Queen Mary, because she's just, it's just such a beautiful spiritual aura that she has. And it's unlike any other location that I've ever been to. It's truly amazing.
So, if you could just quickly tell us a little bit of the history of the Queen Mary, why she was
Oh,
built,
yeah.
what she was for, and then up until present day.
So, back in the 30s, there was a lot of competition between countries to build, the biggest, most fastest liner. And so, Cunard built the Queen Mary, and then obviously her sister ship came a little bit later, the RMS Queen Elizabeth.
Mm.
And so she was built in 1934. Her launch date was September 26, 1934. So many people, even kids, had a day off of school that day to come witness this
Wow.
majestic event. And she was the biggest, one of the biggest, fastest liners of her day. And that's actually two of the reasons why she was requisitioned for World War II service: her speed and her size, because she could hold many, many servicemen.
Mm-hmm.
So she was built in 34, underwent many sea trials to just kind of perfect her sailing and whatnot. And then her maiden voyage took place on May 27th, 1936. So she was designed for the transatlantic route from Southampton to Cherbourg, France to New York City and back. That was her run,
Wow.
week in and week out. Okay, so that's what she did. And so up until 1939, when World War II was imminent, that's when she was requisitioned for service in World War II, and spent some time in New York City's Pier 90, and getting outfitted for World War II service. I mean, they had to take many of her, ornate furnishings that she had, and there was artwork on board from artists from around the world. They had to take all these items out, store them in different warehouses, and then kind of outfit the inner portions of the ship as well as the outer portions for troop ship capacity and servicemen space. So she was painted completely gray, and that's when she was dubbed the Gray Ghost. And at the time, I mean, Winston Churchill, Prime Minister Winston Churchill, was one of the ones instrumental in increasing the troop capacity. And this actually more along when the United States entered World War II after the attack on Pearl Harbor. That's when like I said, America entered the war, and a lot of her troop capacity increased. She went from holding like 5,000 to 10,000 to 15,000
Wow.
plus troops and plus crew. And I believe it was July of 1943 when she held the record number of souls on any ship, and that was 16,683 people.
Oh
So
my gosh.
imagine being, there's pictures of it too. Imagine being packed in like sardines, I mean, meal times. I mean, I've interviewed for my latest book, Voices from Her Voyages. I interviewed various World War II veterans, and they would say it was just like from the time they'd get in line in the morning and they'd be in line to go to the mess hall to get breakfast. Then they'd have to wash their items, and then by the time they were done with that, it was almost time to go and get in the lunch line. And then when they were done with lunch, it was almost time to go and get in the dinner line. So it's just this constant revolving, I guess every deck of the ship, it was just this constant revolving, um, circus of servicemen, just wandering about and, kind of doing what they needed to do to survive on board. There was always a threat of, oh my gosh, is the ship going to sink? What's going to happen? In her years of being a troop ship, I guess, during the war, she never once fired any of her weapons, nor was she fired upon.
Wow.
So there was strict orders from the Navy to never stop, because it's like to help surviving other ships if they had issues. And that there was an incident in 1942, in October of 1942, when one of her World War I escort ships, the HMS Curacao, there was a miscalculation of time on the part of the captain of the Curacao and the captain of the Queen Mary, and so they misjudged the timing. And so what ended up happening is the Queen Mary rammed into the Curacao, sliced it in half, and over 300 British sailors just either burned, drowned, or more. They got sucked underneath the Queen Mary, dismembered by her propellers.
Oh my gosh.
Very, 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 very tragic. Okay.
Oh,
the Queen Mary, the captain at that point, Illingworth, I believe it was, pondered, do I stop the Queen Mary and risk the lives of 15,000 plus people, or do I continue on and then have our men throw out life preservers? He chose the latter because he knew German U-boats would have been there in an instant. I mean, she was constantly targeted by Hitler. There was an award out for anyone who could sink the Queen Mary and get like $250,000 for it. Not one time. I mean, in all reality, this is another thing about the Queen Mary. In all reality, she should be at the bottom of the ocean right now. But just like a phoenix rising from the flames, she miraculously survived every near-death disaster that came her way, and there were many.
Wow.
And so it's just one of those things. I think that she's always had this bubble of spiritual protection around her, and it's just, I mean, she's living on for her sister. I mean, her sister ship, Elizabeth, caught fire and sunk in Hong Kong.
Wow.
So she just kind of lives on for the both of them. So she also
was destined to live forever. I mean, that was destiny.
I think that's the case. And I mean, she carried prisoners of war, German and Italian prisoners of war. She also was a hospital ship at one point carrying injured soldiers to the United Kingdom. And then after the end of World War II, she carried war brides because a lot of these women married American soldiers. So they had to be, kind of, taken from their homeland, and they moved to America to rejoin their married veterans, if you will. So she carried, I think, all in all, around 22,000 war brides. And then once World War II was over, she resumed her pre-World War II transatlantic travel from, Southampton to Cherbourg to New York City and back. And then her retirement came in 1967, and it was a very, I guess, nostalgic crossing. It was the last. She all in all did 1,001 peacetime crossings. So the last one was about a month long, and it ended up where she sailed right into Long Beach, and Captain John Treasure Jones, one of his last words when taking the ship into Long Beach, and when he shut off her engines, he finally said, "Finished with engines." And it was a moment where a lot of the crew shed tears. It was just, just a momentous moment. And so she underwent renovations to make her a museum and a hotel. And, there's restaurants on board now. They have many events there, day in and day out, and tours and annual attractions. So it's, it's weird too, because there was a British psychic, Mabel Fortescue Harrison, and she said something, I don't have it exactly in front of me, but she said on the day of the Mary's launch, she said, oh man, let me get my book. I would love to read exactly what she said, but it was basically,
please do.
Let me try to find it here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me see here. I should have had that before. I don't want to paraphrase it okay, here it is. She said this on the launch. Okay, that occurred back in 1940 or 1934. She said this, and it's so prophetic. She said, okay, on the day of the Mary's September 1934 launching, British psychic Mabel Fortescue Harrison said, most of this generation will be gone, including myself, when this event occurs. However, the Queen Mary, launched today, will know its greatest fame and popularity when she never sails another mile and never carries another passenger.
Wow.
Yeah. Oops. You there?
Yes.
Sorry.
That is just incredible. And I think that was also part of the video that you have on your website that I helped.
That's right. You did that. Oh my God, you helped me.
I did.
Amazing video. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, of course. That was it was my privilege and honor.
Yeah, thank you so much.
In fact, fact, funny enough, I did her voice.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my God, and it was so good too. Oh my gosh. Sometimes I'll show that video at the beginning of my presentations, and I'll always give credit. Like my friend Aaron Collins
oh, well,
video.
thanks. You know,
Yeah.
in putting that video together really helped me fall in love with that ship. And watching, looking at the pictures, because I had to sort through so many pictures to put that video together. And, my first fascination with ships was the Titanic, the RMS Titanic.
Yes.
And, I have a fear of large bodies of water. And, of course, you watch the movie, and then, then I started digging into the history of the Titanic and that tragedy, and then putting this video together for you for the Queen Mary. I just fell in love with this ship, and so let's excuse me.
I can tell you're one of them that would immediately connect. Absolutely.
I have been waiting for years.
Happened. Yeah, it's already happened.
I already feel a connection, and I can't wait to actually physically be there. And so, can you talk a little bit about the spirits on the Queen Mary, and what you have come across through your investigations, and even just relaxing on the ship? What has happened?
Absolutely. I'm I'm an advocate for the spiritual realm pretty much at any place I investigate. But because I've spent so many years spending so many hours on board the Queen Mary, I feel like I've developed a rapport with many of the resident intelligent spirits there, and there are many. I mean, there are times when I go on board and I'll hear, when no one else is around, something that I can't explain, I'll hear in my ear, "Hi, Nicole," or I'll hear like, "Nicole's here," So it's so weird. I've even captured my name on audio recorders before it's just mind-boggling. But I think that's
awesome.
You know how there's welcome centers when you go to each state that you travel to, or each new city. Sure. There's welcome centers. I feel that in a way, the Queen Mary is like a welcome center for the spiritual realm, in that a lot of energies, and this is just my own kind of take. I may be right, I may be wrong, I don't know, but it's just something that I feel strongly within my heart. I feel that many energies will almost pass through the Queen Mary, that whether they're related to the history or not, some choose to stay, some choose to just pass through. In terms of spiritual energy of once living human beings, I do think that there's a layer of residual energy on board. Obviously, we know that there's really no intelligence to that, but then there's, I think, more of an intelligent capacity of spiritual energies on board than residual. And so there are certain spirits, if you will, on board, whether they're earthbound or not, that seem to interact more with people on a daily basis. And so two of those individuals, her name is Jackie. You've probably heard of her. She's a young girl. To this day, I'm not so sure she has a connection to the ship. She almost to me seems to be like the spiritual ambassador of the ship. Maybe she's the spiritual embodiment of the Queen Mary herself. I don't know. But she comes through as a child, around 6 or 7 years old, very, very talkative, very playful, very innocent. I've seen her on board. She kind of looks very similar to like a Shirley Temple. Very, very intelligent, very advanced beyond her years. I kind of have a different take on Jackie than some other people. I feel that she's very highly evolved. I do feel that she's spirit as opposed to earthbound, and it seems as though many energies know who she is. Pretty much a lot of people will experience her in the former first and third class pool, but because there's a theory that she died or drowned in the second class pool, but there's been no forensic, substantiation of that. There's been research done into her, and no one can really find out who she is or her origins. But I think she is real. Whether there is like a tulpa, creation of her alongside the real her, that's hard to say, but I've had many interactions with her. The other one, his name is John, and he's from Yorkshire, and he joined the Queen Mary in March of 1966, and so he served as a fireman and bilge cleaner in the boiler room. And so on the July 1966 voyage, I think it was number 482 or 483, he was found wedged, uh, barely clinging to life in watertight door number 13, which is on the starboard shaft alley side of the aft engine room. So no one knows exactly what happened to him. Some people think he was kind of chicken, where the guys would kind of joke around and see if they could go through the watertight doors without getting stuck. I don't think that happened because at the time of this incident, the Queen Mary, the vessel was in a fog station. Crew members were trained not to screw around like that. I think it was some very unfortunate freak accident. Maybe he tripped and fell, got up and couldn't get out of the door in time. So he was later administered morphine the hospital, and he did not survive, and his remains sent back to his family. He has been seen. I have seen him. I've interacted with him many times, but I will say this: he does seem to be content. He seems to enjoy, being on board. Whether that's a front, I don't know, but he doesn't seem to be, in a lot of distress, which is, that makes me feel better. But he goes around. A lot of people will see and experience him in the aft engine room or boiler room area, but he's kind of roams around the ship. So he's a documented crew death. And so there's another one, Senior Second Officer William Eric Stark, who accidentally passed away. I want to say it was 1948 when this happened. And he accidentally he wanted to have some gin. He was, I guess, was fighting a cold and was meeting with fellow staff, and he accidentally took the bottle of carbon tetrachloride, mistaking that for gin, consumed it, then got really sick, had to be taken to a nearby hospital where he passed away. He's been seen on board. Well, he seems to kind of be more earthbound, doing his rounds aboard the ship. But I mean, people have had experiences with former passengers, seeing World War II soldiers, marching through various decks, whether that's more of a residual phenomenon. It's hard to say. They're down where the Queen Mary sliced in half the Curacao. In that area, our deck forward area, people will hear the disembodied screams of men crying out. That's thought to be a residual, phenomenon from that accident. So whatever the case, the general energy on board the Queen Mary, there's nothing malevolent on there. There's no, people did die, from various ailments or tragedies, of course, but, it seems as though the Queen Mary takes care of its spirits. She's like a mother to her spirits. That's kind of my take on it. But I think there's so many on board. There's so many on board, and it's just one of those interesting places where I think that there's a lot of energy that comes through on a consistent basis that may pass through. But, it's pretty interesting.
There's so much history. There's tragedy. There's beauty. There's love. There's there's so much wrapped into this beautiful ship. And one of the things I love that you said was how you sometimes when you're on there by yourself, you'll hear in your ear somebody say, "Hey, Nicole," or "Nicole's here," or you'll capture that. And honestly, that says a lot about you, Nicole, and it goes back to what I said about your energy, your loving energy. And I experienced the same. And I say this, I keep going back to the Portland Shanghai tunnels because that's where I spent so much time. I spent a good better of a year down there, and a lot of times I was down there by myself because as a tour guide, it was our responsibility to go and get everything set up before the tours. So you're down there in the dark by yourself, getting things set up. And that's when I would go and I would start talking to the spirits. "Hey, everybody, it's Aaron. I'm here to get everything set up for the tours today." And just start talking. Well, oftentimes I would hear, "Hey, Aaron," when I'm by myself.
Isn't that, it makes you feel so, it's such a warm feeling, you know. It's just
It is.
like, you know, I mean, they're acknowledging you, and it's
Yes.
pretty cool.
And I had a lady one time who was on one of my tours, just real quick. And I know we're
Yeah.
going over time, and as long as you have time, I've got
That's
feedback,
fine. No, I'm
permission
totally.
from the producers saying we got a thumbs
Yeah.
up. So let's just keep going if you're all right with it.
I'm totally cool.
All right, awesome. Is it okay with the cat?
She's sleeping. She's passed out over there.
All right. All right. Well, hopefully Michael's funny is doing all right, and he's okay back there. But
I think she wants to eat. There she goes. She just made. Okay, sorry about that.
I had a lady come down who said that she had psychic abilities, and she looked at me, and you know, obviously when you're doing a tour or giving a tour, people are always looking at you, of course. But the way she was looking at me was like she was like looking through me or something, and she finally came up to me as we're walking from one section to another, and she said, she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, "Aaron," and I said, "Yes," and she said, "There's spirits here, and they're telling me that they absolutely adore you." And I said, "Really?"
Oh, yeah.
And I said, "Okay." And she said, "I do have psychic abilities, and they said that they absolutely love you here, that you treat them so well, and they love you come here, but they want you to stop taking time off." because apparently I had taken some time off and I was away for a couple of weeks, and they were used to me coming down 4 or 5 days a week. And and so anyway, and I thought about that a lot since I stopped doing the tour. Yeah. And it's hard on me now that I don't do the tours anymore, because it's been over a year now since I've done the tours, and you know, I feel bad because I haven't been back there. And so, but yeah, it says a lot about you as a person, being on the Queen Mary and these spirits, you know, talking to you. And it's like they're excited. They're like, hey, Nicole's here. Nicole's here, everybody.
It's so funny that it happens because, and of course, I try to, you know, okay, was it a guest, you know, calling someone else there that also has my name? But when this happens, I'm usually, when it happens, I'm kind of in an area where it's just me. There's not a lot of people around, or it'll be like you hear something from a far off dimension that you really can't explain.
Yeah.
I mean, even like when we've done investigations in the past, I'll get, you know, random Nicole, like, you know, like through EVP work or whatever. It's so weird.
Well, you know, Jeff, speaking of Jeff Davis, you know, he organized a weekend investigation in Astoria, Oregon, and we were at a hotel there, and we were down in the basement doing the first night doing an investigation, and one of the guys had, I call it a souped up spirit box, because he really put his own stuff into it to clean it up and really make it to where we can understand, you know, the voices coming through.
You probably with the static.
Yeah, I got rid of all the static and everything. Yeah. And so, being a musician myself, I've been playing guitar since I was 10 years old. I've been in several bands and blah, blah, blah. And worship leader for 10 years. So I understood what he was using, because he used what was similar to, actually it was like a chorus box that they use, a pedal for guitar effect. Right. And, and anyways, and so he used a couple of different things like that and cleaned it up. Well, anyways, I come walking in he was already set up. I come walking in with my wife and one other person, his partner, who they were on the same team together. And I come walking in, and immediately on the spirit box, you can hear the voices say, "Hey, it's Aaron." Oh, no. It says, "Hey, Aaron's coming."
Oh my God.
I had never been to that hotel before. You know, and so, yeah. And so I listened to that so many times, because we video recorded it and audio recorded it. And I thought, oh my God, that's incredible. Now, I have done so many investigations where I'm used to hearing my name being called out, you know, on EVPs and stuff like that. But it being the only Aaron, I can't imagine what other Aaron, because I was literally
absolutely.
You know, I'm walking, you can see me on video walking into that basement room and you can hear the voice say, "Hey, Aaron's coming."
That is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it's just it says like you said, it says a lot about you. It's
Uh,
I if I can share one experience along the same lines of this, that
hmm,
happened at the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe a couple of years ago. We were in the master bedroom and we were doing a spirit box session. Now, I didn't hear this live at the time. It was heard when I went back and reviewed the audio file a couple of days later. And
hmm.
I heard very clearly, and I mean, I haven't done forensic voice analysis to compare my grandfather's voice with this. I could do it, but I just know in my heart, because what I'm about to say, it just blew me away. I actually threw my headphones. I just like took them off and was like, I like kind of just sat there in shock, if you will. And
Wow.
so in the middle of our session, a man comes through and says, "Nicole, I love you." And then
Oh,
immediately after that was a woman that said, "Fulvio, go home, dear." Fulvio was my grandfather's nickname that was
no
only known
way.
by the immediate family. And
Oh,
these are my mom's parents. Okay.
wow.
And
Ooh, that's
so,
giving me goosebumps right there.
I mean, like what? And even
Oh,
Allie lost her mom a few years ago,
oh, I'm
and her
sorry.
mom through there at the Adobe. It's just like I think there's, but it's, I think certain places, I don't know if it has to do with portals or what, but just certain places it's easier for energies to come through. But,
Yeah.
I mean, they know who cares about them. They know who is going to come with respect and treat them with kindness. They know that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of
Absolutely.
times the spirit world is more intelligent than the living world in many regards.
Hmm.
Uh, so,
In going back to the Shanghai tunnels real quick, and then
I
I have
can't. I would
few more,
go there.
yeah, a few more questions about the Queen Mary. But just to bring this up, I have another great. I mean, I have a lot of great friends who are psychics, psychic mediums, and people in the paranormal field that are just outstanding. And you're included, of course. But
Oh,
this one particular person, I went and met with her, and she said, you have someone here with you. And I said, really? I said, who? And she said, he's from the Shanghai tunnels. And I said,
oh,
really? And I said, okay. I said, well, what more can you tell me about him? Well, apparently he's from New York, and there's a water line that goes through the tunnels. And he, think of it as maybe a subway or a super highway.
right.
And he had jumped on at some point and was coming through, saw me giving a tour, jumped off, and was immediately connected to me. And what connected him to me was my energy and the fact that I'm a musician. He was a street musician,
Oh,
and he
oh,
had passed away early, too soon. And I don't know if it was drug related or what, but anyways, nevertheless, he was immediately drawn to me, and so he was always there with me when I was in the tunnels. And he felt like he had to protect me from others that wanted to maybe not do harm, but well, maybe do harm, because that's kind of the word that she used. So he would stand between me and the ones that wanted to do harm and put his hand up and
my
say
God.
no, no. And oh my gosh, that amazed me. And so
Isn't that
once I
incredible?
yes, it is. And once I found out, found this information out and found out his name, and of course I can't recall his name at the moment, but once I found out his name, I would go down there and specifically speak to him along with the others. And
Mhm.
because I always felt a presence with me when I was walking through the tunnels, always.
See that?
And
Mm.
yeah, but I could never pinpoint. I could see them. I always saw someone like at the corner of my eye. It never scared me. I never got scared down there,
Right.
but I knew somebody was with me, but I could never pinpoint who. And so to have that validation and then to find out his name, what happened, and the fact that he's a musician and he wanted to write a song with me. The funny thing is
Oh my
before
God.
the day that I went to go see my friend, I felt that morning, I thought, I need to write a new song. And I felt
Oh,
inspired. I hadn't felt inspired to write and to play my guitar in a while.
oh
And
my
that
God.
morning, I was talking to my oldest son and I said, man, I really, because he's also a musician. And I said, I really feel inspired to write a song, and I don't know where this is coming from. So when I went to meet with my friend, and she was telling me about him, she said, he said to tell you, and I didn't tell her any of this. And she said, he's saying right now that he's been inspiring you all morning to write a song with him. And I
Oh my
thought,
God.
I burst into tears, Nicole, because
I can imagine.
all morning I had been inspired to write a song, and to know that he's the one that was inspiring me and trying to push me into doing this with him. How incredible is that? A spirit
That
is
is
trying to write a song with
I mean, that's
you
effing
know.
incredible. I mean, that's just so heartwarming.
It is.
You know, these are the types of stories I love to hear about. You know, I mean, there's just,
And this
wow.
is, not all ghosts and spirits and entities have to be scary and
They
like they
don't.
make it, in Hollywood and television.
I know. Exactly.
Now, there were times when I was down there by myself, when you're in the dark in the Shanghai tunnels, knowing the history, that, yeah, I got the heebie-jeebies at times, but, for the most part, I felt comfortable. My kids, one of my youngest son, he was a tour guide assistant. So, he was 15 at the time, 15, I'm sorry, 15. He was scared to death. He just would not go down by himself. And that was
Right.
his job.
That's understandable.
Yeah. And I said, Lucas, there's no reason to be scared. They're not going to hurt you. You hear me talk to them every time you come down with me, whenever he did, whenever, he was available to come and help me on a tour. He would come down with me together. He would hear me talk to the spirits. And I said, why don't you try this? No, nope, nope.
Find out
And
fear of the unknown.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, let's get back to the Queen Mary. So, what are your plans now? You have written, you said 3 books, correct?
Yeah, 3.
Okay. And I have 2 of the 3, I believe. So, now, what are your plans now for the future with you and the Queen Mary?
You know, like some people think I work for the ship. I'm going to state on the record. I don't work for the ship. You know, I have my book sold there, and I've done some speaking presentations there. Yeah, which is fine.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. And I have such a relationship with the ship that I don't need to even conduct investigative work anymore there. I can go on board and have a connection with the spiritual energies and like you with the Shanghai tunnels, and communicate with the energies on board without having to feel pressured to do a paranormal investigation. I don't need to hear their voices on audio anymore. I don't need to see them necessarily. There's that kind of telepathic communication, if you will. So
Right.
it's pretty special. Let's see. In terms of writing about the Queen Mary, I thought my 3rd book was going to be the last, but as it turns out, more and more people are coming to me with their relative stories on board. So I might in the future come out with a 2nd edition or a 2nd volume, if you will, to Voices from Her Voyages. And so with that book, I'm donating 100% of the proceeds to the Queen Mary Heritage Foundation, because in my heart, I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right to, oh yeah, I just feel it's right. I just don't, because the book is just, a bunch of people's stories and their family stories, and I just feel like the money needs to be put back in the ship. So
now the reader or listeners are falling in love with you. You know this, right?
They are.
Oh, of course. I mean, you're just they're just falling in love with you. I mean, my goodness, you're such a wonderful person, and
for you.
I mean, I can't say enough wonderful things.
Oh, I know. Likewise.
Oh, thank you. But keep. So that's awesome. So 100% is going to go back to the ship.
Yeah, I just think it's the right thing to do. And so when I get a 2nd volume or 2nd edition out too as well, I mean, it's kind of surreal to walk on board and see 3 of my books in the bookstore. I mean, it's pretty, it's pretty amazing. But let's see, I do every so often present about the Queen Mary. I've done some library presentations here. I have one coming up next week at the Borrego Springs Library, so I'll be talking about the Queen Mary there. And then I'll be going on another radio show February 4th. It's Radio Wasteland, I believe. They want to interview me about the Queen Mary there too. So I feel like it's just, for me, it's like it's an ongoing mission for me, kind of like a life's work, to share the legacy of the Queen Mary, because there's so much I mean, she should be a college course. I mean, my friend Joe Bertoldo, when he listens to this, he's a Queen Mary enthusiast, and he's collected so many different types of memorabilia from the ship and other ships. And he's the one that said, you know, the Queen Mary should be adapted into like a college course because there's so much to learn. I mean, even with the Long Beach Unified School District, there's a project between the Long Beach Unified School District and the Queen Mary. I think it's called Project STEAM. So it stands for science, technology, engineering, I forget what the A stands for, and then mathematics. So kids get to go on board and learn about, you know, all those different disciplines, and then at the same time learn about the history of the ship. So I think it's really important. So I think there's a lot for her future in her near future.
That's awesome. Well, it's floating history. And
it is.
people,
it's
you know,
totally.
kids should have the opportunity to learn, and to actually physically go there would be amazing. You know, how often do we get a chance to learn about something so incredible, a piece of history, and to actually go and visit? I mean, that would just be phenomenal. So
exactly. I think it's a pretty cool partnership that they have there. So I'm really excited about that. And then I think there's a lot of new things on her horizon for the near future and stuff. So I think it's really cool.
Ooh, that's intriguing.
Yeah. So some of which I'm not even sure exactly, but I just down the grapevine I've heard, you know, oh, this is going to happen and this is going to happen. And, it's cool.
That's great.
Her legacy continues.
Awesome. So if you are interested in learning more about Nicole, or seeing exactly what she's up to, and wanting to order her book. So first of all, let's talk about that. So if someone wants to order your books, where should they go?
Amazon.com, they're on there, barnesandnoble.com, so you can go online to get them. I know the Queen Mary ones are sold on board. If you're ever on board the Queen Mary, you can get them there. And then my other ones, depending on, you know, like San Diego's Most Haunted is sold in some stores throughout San Diego. But I would say the easiest way is just to go like on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com and get them.
Okay. And then if people would like to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
Oh, Facebook. I have my own Facebook page, which is Nicole PISD. And then I have the San Diego Paranormal Research Society has its own page. So facebook.com and then / our acronym, which is SDPRS. And then I have another Facebook page just for like my author Facebook page. I'm not even sure what that's even called. It's like author, paranormal researcher, Nicole Strickland. I don't know. I should post more on that page. And then I'm on Instagram as well. I'm starting to use that more, and that's author Nicole Strickland on Instagram. I do have Twitter, but I'm not on there that much. But if you so I need to start using it more. It's at SDPRS Nicole. Those are probably the best ways to get a hold of me. But I'm pretty good about, like, on social media, if someone messages me, like, I'll get back to them, either that day or the next day. So, but awesome. I enjoy talking with people who have like a like-minded passion in the field. I just want to say too, there are so many amazing people up in the Pacific Northwest, including yourself and your team.
Oh, thank you.
There's a lot of great people up there, and I'm very honored to know all of them and to collaborate with them. So,
well, we feel just as honored to collaborate and to know you and have you be a part of the Oregon Ghost Conference. And and here's the thing: if you're going to be in Oregon, or if you're planning on going to the Oregon Ghost Conference, please stop by and say hi to Nicole Strickland. She is, as you can tell, she's an amazing human being, such a big heart, and just a kind person, and an amazing author, an amazing investigator and researcher. So take the time, please stop and say hello to her. I know that she would appreciate that. And the Oregon Ghost Conference.
Cry. Oh my gosh.
Oh, well, I speak the truth, my friend.
Yes, you do, and I admire that.
So you can go to the OregonGhostConference.com to find out more about the schedule and the dates for the Oregon Ghost Conference. And who doesn't want to go to Seaside, Oregon, and kind of play a little bit on the beach and hang out with all of us wonderful people in the Northwest and California, of course, because you're going to be there. So
Yay.
take the time and please make the trip to Seaside, Oregon, and see us. And if you can't, I mean, Nicole just gave off a lot of her websites and places on social media where you can get a hold of her. And we'll also post that in the link to the show when the show airs, so that way you can get a hold of her. So, and please buy her books. Her books are amazing. She's an amazing author. So, and you want to know anything more about the Queen Mary? I mean, she is it. Let me tell you. So,
Oh,
and we
you're
can
so
talk all
sweet.
night. Oh well, thank
I
you.
know, right? Tell me about it. Thank you so much for having me on. I literally feel the same way about you and you know, like you do about me. So
Well,
it's
thank you.
yeah.
Well, it's
Uh,
been my honor and privilege to have you on, Nicole. And
Thank you
unfortunately,
so
we do
much.
have to go. But I want to invite you to come back on again in the future, and
Got
maybe
it.
we do a show from the Oregon Ghost Conference, and we can kind of maybe update a little bit.
That'd be fun.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and we'll have Christina on with us at that point, so that'll
Yes.
be fun. So
Yes. Give her a
uh,
hug for me.
I will do that. So thank you for listening in to Paranormal Crossings into the Unknown, and I am your host, Aaron Collins. Today was such an awesome show with my wonderful friend and wonderful guest, Nicole Strickland. Again, we will post where you can get a hold of her if you have any questions for her specifically or want to know more about her. Please go to Amazon.com, look up Nicole Strickland. You'll find her amazing books, and visit the Queen Mary. Hopefully, you'll have a chance to visit the Queen Mary before I do. And if you do, write to me. Let me know what your experience was like. I would love to hear about it. So this is Aaron Collins, and I thank you again, and thank you for tuning in to Paranormal Crossings into the Unknown. We'll see you next time. Have a good night.